you if you want to share it with anyone who couldn't be here tonight, you'll have that opportunity.
All right, let's get started. It's 7 o'clock.
Welcome to the 2021 Traveling in a New Vegan World. My name is Margie Jordan and I'll be your host for this event. Now, Traveling in a Vegan World was created by an amazing group of travel advisors and bloggers who wanted to showcase the best of the world to you and do it while traveling vegan. Grab your passports because over the next few days, we're going to visit some of our favorite destinations, including Europe, the UK, Asia, Canada, Central America, and the USA. We're going to be talking about the national parks, we're talking about cruises, and we're going to help you pick the right all-inclusive for your next vacay. It's going to be an incredible journey as we get you excited about traveling, enjoying the delicious vegan cuisine, and making an impact in local communities. Welcome to the 2021 Traveling. Hey everybody, it's Margie Jordan. I am your host for this is our second day of Traveling in a New Vegan World. I hope you enjoyed the first day when we talked about Europe and the UK. Today, we are bringing you Canada and the USA. So I want to introduce to you your panelists, your speakers today, one by one. So let's start with Miss Jennifer Karen-Kaminsky. Jennifer is the owner of Magical Moments Vacations. It just sounds like a magical agency, right? She is a family and romance travel specialist, and she's a theme park expert from New York City. She loves to be the perfect vacation matchmaker, crafting the perfect trip for each of her clients. Now, what you need to know is in addition to that, she does cruises and all-inclusive vacations. Jennifer is perhaps best known for her extremely detailed planning to make touring theme parks such as Walt Disney World and Universal Orlando fun, easy for all types of travelers. And I love me a good theme park. Let me tell you about Donna. Now, Donna Zeigfinger is actually you're going to be your moderator today and speaker. Donna is the owner of Green Earth Travel LLC, founded in 1997 as the nation's premier vegetarian, vegan, and eco travel agency. Donna focuses primarily on volunteer vacations and adventure travel. She remains on the cutting edge of destinations with a conscience, offering travel for those who actually care about the planet. And last but not least, we have Mr. Jason McGregor. And Jason is owner of Vegan Vacations. He's a longtime avid traveler and he's seen his fair share of the globe. He's explored by ship, self-drive holidays, and all-inclusive vacations and tours, providing lots of firsthand knowledge of exactly what you need to know to ensure you have a safe and never forgetful vacation. Now, after converting to a vegan traveler, he learned pretty quickly, as most of us did, that there wasn't the same level of service or product offering available to those that chose to be nicer to the planet and animals, and thus Vegan Vacations was born. I hope you enjoy your panel tonight. It's going to be wonderful. You're going to get lots of information. And again, welcome to day 2 of Traveling in a New Vegan World.
Thank you so much, Margie. Margie is Margie Jordan from Margie's Travels, and I want to tell you a little bit about her, just a little bit of something. She is a travel industry executive. She's a speaker and she's on-air talent, if you couldn't tell by the way she did that wonderful video. And she's also ridiculously obsessed with changing the world. And I know Margie from one of my organizations that I belong to, CCRA. So a little bit before we get started, got to do some housekeeping here. We ask that everyone please mute so that we don't have any interruptions. And please post in the chat box if you have any questions. Questions are going to be answered the last part of the session, probably the last 15 minutes if we don't go over. And this is being recorded so you can watch later, and we'll also you'll have access in the Facebook group. And if you're not on Facebook, you can message me or Jason or Jennifer, and we'll send you the YouTube link. And with that, we'll get started. Traveling in 2021. This is today's agenda. So we're going to be talking about traveling in 2021 and types of vegan travelers, more about Canada and USA, the United States, best ways to explore each country. We're going to be exploring the national parks. We're going to be visiting theme parks. And then we're going to look into finding the best vegan hubs, and then the value of using a travel agent. You're muted, Jennifer. Jennifer, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Every single thing that we're talking about today, we could easily do a full webinar or more on that.
True.
So we're giving you the overview, but if whatever interests you, please put it in the chat. We'll be happy to cover more. But today, just want to talk about traveling in 2021. It really is a whole new world. But we're ready to get back to it. I know I am. So some of the things you just need to keep in mind as you speak with your travel advisor and make your plans is finding out the rules for your destination as well as your home country and state. So tonight we're talking about Canada and the US. And within the past few weeks, both of those countries have come out with some new rules. So that's important to know about. And I happen to be from New York State, which has a lot of its own rules in addition to that. So it's something we want to be aware of in terms of your planning. Of course, we're all concerned about enhanced safety and health protocols in destination. And that's something that I'm sure you'll be taking into account when you decide how to travel and where to travel. And usually I would tell you, lock up that cell phone, stop doom scrolling, don't answer that email. But we will want to stay connected while you're traveling these days, just in case any changes do come up. You want to make sure that you're aware and knowing, how to look for good sources of information, like official government websites, not blog posts or any old information. We can guide you to where to get tested and when and how based on all those regulations. And you need to understand your own readiness to travel. We're all in a different boat. We're all living in different places. And, we all are going to decide at different times when we're ready to travel again. I think some of us have our bags packed and some of us are planning for later in the year. So you have to understand your own readiness. And that might even be impacted by the way that you travel. So maybe you're not quite ready to get on an airplane, but you might want to take an RV and just do the ultimate, independent, socially distanced trip. So we'll talk about that. Insurance right now, more important than ever. I think all three of us would agree. Really important to make sure, and that your insurance will covers what you think it will. So really important to get expert advice on that.
And we can do a seminar just on insurance alone these days.
For sure. And just, hopefully we can empower you and you can feel empowered sometime in 2021. Just, mask up and just get ready and go, no matter what kind of traveler you are.
So where we wanted to start the conversation tonight was just about the types of vegan travelers there are. A lot of people think veganism is just one big word and represents everybody, but there's a lot of different stories and ways that people came to veganism and their motivations. We also think that knowing the type of vegan traveler that you are allows you to be your own best advocate, which is really important when you're traveling the world, especially if you're going to a country where you might not know the language, might not be native to the language, and need some assistance. So knowing what your needs are and how to communicate them to other people are really important. It's also usually the first place that I start my conversation with clients is finding out what type of vegan they are. The first type of vegan that we were going to talk about is healthy vegans. This is the second largest group of vegans, but the primary place where travel options currently live. We all know that we can find that wellness spa retreat. We're going to have a seminar later in this series that's going to talk about a wonderful wellness spot. But this is where the travel providers have started with their offerings. They think every vegan is a healthy vegan and is focused primarily on their diet and better health. And while this is a large group of vegans, it's not actually the largest. The largest is actually ethical vegans. This is more of a way of life rather than just a diet or a fad a fad that you do for a short period of time. It's the largest group of vegans. 1/3 of all vegans are ethical. And that includes not using any animal products ever. And most ethical vegans are against all animal cruelty. When I'm talking to a client and they tell me that their primary goal as an ethical vegan, their primary focus is the ethics of veganism, I really try and find those experiences where they're not going to run into any animal products. They're not going to find any animal cruelty, and try to make sure that we craft a trip that is geared right for them. The next type of vegan is an environmental vegans. Now, these are vegans that are more focused on living a greener lifestyle. They want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and they want to reduce their pollution, but they still want to explore the world. These types of vegans, I usually talk to them about the possibility of carbon offsetting their trip, which, if done correctly and with the proper research, can be a great way to allow you to explore the world, but know that you're doing it in balance with nature and the environment around you. These types of vegans also don't want to support any animal agriculture. I think that's a common theme for most vegans, but something that's really in the forefront of environmental vegans' minds. The fourth type of vegan is a religious vegan. And these are people who are living a vegan life as a religious act. Jainism has quite a few supporters and followers that follow a strict vegan diet. They absolutely abhor violent activity of all kinds. So veganism really fits with their lifestyle. Jainism is really widespread in Thailand. Thailand is actually one of the top 5 2021 vegan destinations that we've listed in our ebook. If you'd like a copy of the ebook, you can let me know after this presentation. But this is another group of vegans, and when we craft trips for these people, we try and make sure that we follow all of the rules and the guidelines that they need to live by. So we wanted to start off by finding out what type of vegan traveler everybody who has joined us is. So we're going to do a quick poll. The poll is multiple choice, so if you are coming at it from a few different types of veganisms, we'd love to know whether you're an ethical vegan, a healthy vegan, an environmental vegan, religious, or maybe a mix of the above. We'll just wait a few moments just to see everybody voting, but your poll should have popped up right now.
Yes, it's up.
That's great.
We'll
Yeah,
give
right
it a
about
few more
50.
seconds until everyone has voted. About 60. Well, yeah, we'll just wait a few more seconds here. This is
That's
exciting.
great. Yeah, we're at about 80, almost 90% now. That's wonderful.
Right. Got a few
Awesome.
more.
Perfect. Yeah. So we can go ahead and end that poll, I think. So it looks like, as we suspected, ethical vegans and healthy vegans come out kind of first and second. So we really are following what the stats say about the types of vegans we are. That's great. Thanks, everybody. So we can't really talk about Canada and the US without giving you a bit of information about the countries. In terms of Canada, it's important to note that it's a big country. It's definitely not a place that you're going to be able to visit in one trip. You're going to have to come back a few times, which I think is a wonderful way of seeing the country. But doing East Coast to the West Coast is virtually impossible. Every landscape imaginable, from the East Coast and our maritime provinces right through the Canadian Shield and into the plains and the Rocky Mountains. We've got pretty much every landscape that you could ever imagine or that you'd really want to experience. We're a nation, many nations in one. Our country was built on indigenous lands, and when our settlers came from Britain and France, they actually brought with them immigration, and our country is really built on immigration, and we welcome all nations. And I think when you go to some of the hubs we'll talk about later, you'll really see that there are options from every sort of background and culture. And Canada has a rapidly growing vegan community. As of 2018, about 9.4% of our population identified as vegan or vegetarian. So it's definitely a rapidly growing community. You'll see later, we've got vegans all across our country. I'm going to pass it off to Donna now to tell us a little bit about the United States.
Oh boy. It's also a very large country. Like you can't do it. You can drive cross country in a week, but you can't do the whole thing in a week. So keep that in mind. It's got an extensive national parks service system, and we were actually just looking at it, and I think there's over 400 national park sites in the US, including one near me. And there are groundbreaking theme parks that we're going to be talking about, including Universal and Disney. And there has been a 300% increase in identified vegans. We actually did a search on that the other day, and there's over 9 million vegans in the country right now. That has grown exponentially in the past 10 years. And I've noticed it in the past 6 months that it's grown a lot as well.
So we really wanted to start off by talking about some of the ways that you can get around Canada and the US. A lot of these, most of you know about, but it's great to give a bit more detail and context. And what you'll find in Canada and the US is it's very similar, the modes of transportation. So it's very interchangeable and works really well for us all talking tonight. The first one is flying. Of course, the only way to get to North America, if you're not currently on the continent or in the Americas, is to fly into the country. And prior to COVID, there was a ton of flying options. We're currently seeing what's going to be available in 2021, but we have no doubt that this will be a primary mode of being able to get into the country. In terms of talking about it being a big country, just for some context, to fly from Halifax on our East Coast to Vancouver on our West Coast, it's about 6 hours. So it does take a good chunk of time to be able to get across the country.
And there are also ways that you can offset your footprint on flying, which we can talk about later.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So even, within the US and Canada, flying might still be the best option for you. It's certainly one of the quickest options. One thing is I think we're going to be seeing mandatory mask wearing on flights for the foreseeable future. So that's something that you'll want to keep in mind. But if you're not comfortable yet, you don't want to get on a flight with, 100 of your new best friends, driving is another excellent option in both locations. One thing that I wanted to point out, just make sure you want to keep in mind about driving, is if you're driving outside of your home country, you want to make sure you really understand the rules about what kind of license you need and what kind of insurance you need.
That's totally true. In Canada, you actually require an international driving permit, which will convert your driver's license and translate it into English and French, so that if you are driving, you have something that an officer can read and you won't get held up as long, because they'll be able to confirm right away that you are legally able to drive in Canada.
And one other thing, which I'd like to mention, I was a member for many years until I got my new car. But Better World is like a form of AAA. It's similar to AAA, only they give back to you know people and the environment, and you can also do carbon offsets, but they do triptychs too, like AAA does. So I've used
That's
them
great.
many times, and it's a great way to feel good about the service. And if you get stuck somewhere, they're going to help you.
That's wonderful. And I
I put
think,
the link on the side there. So RVing, um, this is something that I had planned to do this year, but it's going to be put off until next year or later this year. RVing, it's a step up. It's a major step up from driving all the way across the country. This is like a hotel on wheels. And I've started looking into it. I will be selling that product if people are interested. Um, and There's a company called Cruise America that I'm going to be using, and Auto Europe, which Auto Europe also sells cars in the States, but they do RVs as well. And I think if you want to get like a rough cost on an RV, they range anywhere from like 80 a day to like 150, or excuse me, about 150 a day. And then they charge fees like the per something like 35 cents per mile. And of course, you have to factor in for the parks, staying in the parks and stuff. But it's still such a nicer way than to stay at a hotel, especially in this day and age when, hotels are a little uncertain right now.
And you get to
Um,
control it. You get to
you can
really
control
control your
everything. You can
experience.
go in there and clean it, and it's yours for 2 weeks. Um, and it's just, it's a great way to travel.
Canada's very similar, Donna. We actually have some great providers that offer RVs where you can start in one city, end in the next. You're able to add additional features if you don't want to have to worry about dishes or food. I mean, there's tons of different add-ons that you can have in the RV. Or as most of us probably have done, you're able to go to the grocery stores, pick up what you want, be able to cook what you want, when you want, stop where you want. It's really that sort of you get to choose your own adventure, as they call it. So I love this option of traveling, and I know I'll be doing it in 2021.
Oh, I can't wait.
I particularly requested to add the rail. Rail is an obvious option for traveling across the country if you want to see both of our countries, if you want to see great landscapes. In Canada in particular, we have one of our most recommended experiences is on board the Rocky Mountaineer. It is a luxury train experience that I have. We are able to confirm that vegans can be accommodated on the train. That incorporates a train ride right through the Rocky Mountains around the West Coast into the Gold Rush country, as well as luxury hotel stays at the Fairmont hotels. These hotels have vegan amenities, are able to accommodate vegans at each of their restaurants. It's a wonderful experience if you just want to do that on your own, or if you'd like to come out to the West Coast and then add on a cruise to Alaska. There are a ton of different options in Canada for sure. What about in the US, Jennifer?
So in the US, for sure, we have Amtrak, which I think most people in the US know about. And there are many routes that are, primarily great for quick and efficient transportation, but there are also many, many gorgeous scenic routes. I saw we have some people from the Pacific Northwest. There's the gorgeous, the Cascades. There's just some beautiful routes in the US as well.
Great. And the last one we wanted to focus on, and we don't want to take any of our thunder away from our Tuesday night event where we talk about cruising and all inclusives, but we would be remiss if we didn't actually discuss boating because there are so many options. Yeah, I think it's 250,000 lakes alone in Ontario, and that's one province of our great country. So, I mean, if you want to grab a kayak, you want to grab a canoe, you're able to get those adventure sort of experiences where you really can be on your own and you don't have to be in large groups. Another great option in Canada is some of the expedition cruises in the Maritimes and the Arctic, as well as the Great Lakes cruises. There are some companies with really small, intimate ships that are going to be offering even lower capacities than they're used to. So it's really something to consider. We also found out this year that we have a few providers that are able to offer charter boats. So another option similar to RVing, it's like a hotel on water. You can charter your own boat where you can stay on board, you can self-cater, and you can sail up the St. Lawrence River and experience the country in a way that is unimaginable, I think, because you're able to get into small little communities and see much more of Canada. Did you have anything from the US that you wanted to add, Donna?
Well, the American Steamboat Company is a great way. I think that's not one of the is that it? I'm trying to
I
look
believe
at
it
the
is.
picture. Yeah, that's another great way to see, the Midwest area. The small boats, there was a small boat company in California that did the Sonoma River, which is no longer around. I think there are other companies, but in Alaska, there's a lot of cruises going on there. Summertime is perfect for that. And also in Hawaii, there are a lot of cruises around Hawaii as well.
Great. So that brings us to our second poll. We wondered which way would you be your favorite to explore Canada or the US? So Donna's going to pull up another poll for us.
Okay. There we go.
And if you want to click, it's multiple choice. So you are able to choose a couple of options. You don't have to choose just one.
Wow, no driving.
You know, Jason, I think you made that Rocky Mountaineer just sound so good.
I bet everyone's going for the
I'm
rail
telling
right
you, it
now.
really is it's the most recommended experience on the West Coast for sure. That's great.
Wow, that's a
Perfect. So,
surprise there. I mean, flying, I knew that was going to happen for a while, but rail.
yeah. No, it's great. Rail really overtook it. And I think it's another great way. There's another great way to see the country and to be able to see some of the landscape you normally wouldn't see. So that's awesome. Um, so now I'm going to pass it off to Donna to talk to us about national parks.
Woohoo, here we go. All right. So I would love to say that I've seen all the national parks. I've only seen maybe, I don't know. Well, I live in DC, so we live in a national park, and my husband lives down the street from a national park in the Maryland area. It's a very small park. Um, but the two I'm going to focus in on, actually three, are the Grand Tetons, Yellowstone, and Zion and Grand Canyon. So that's actually four. What did I say that right? Yeah. Um, the Grand Tetons, we actually have a vegan trip going this year to Yellowstone and the Grand Tetons, and it's in July. And basically, you're just gonna start in Jackson. It's a small group of 10 people. Then we're gonna head to the Grand Tetons. And let me tell you something, this is a tour that you can do on your own. We're just putting together a small group of vegans so you don't have to worry about anything and you can hang out with us. And then we're going to head down to Yellowstone. And then from Yellowstone, we're going to do a Yellowstone wildlife safari where we can possibly see grizzlies. I don't know if I want to see them up close, but I'll see them from afar. And then we'll go to the island park. And then we head back to Jackson. And it's just it's a 5-day tour. It's a great tour, and it's something I'm very excited about because I have not been to Yellowstone as of yet, and I've not seen wild buffalo in the wild. So that's one of my bucket things. And then the second area that I'm going to talk about is Best Friends Volunteer and Grand Canyon North Rim Tour. And let me tell, I've been to the North Rim and I've been to the South Rim, and I will tell you hands down that I prefer, I mean, they're both beautiful, don't get me wrong. The North Rim is just stunning, and it's so much cooler in the summer. This is again, well, this one's going to be in the fall, but so it will be chilly then. It's about 15 degrees colder than the South Rim, but I like my favorite kind of tour, and I'm not sure if my one of my clients is in here that was on my trip. I thought she was coming in. We went 10 years ago, and what I like doing is I like to volunteer for like 3 days and then have the last 2 days where you're relaxing because volunteering can be very exhausting. So where we're going is to Best Friends Sanctuary, or Best Friends Society as they call it now. And then we're going to volunteer there for 3 days and then head to the North Rim of the Grand Canyon, and we're going to stay in the cabins. Um, it's so basically what you're going to be doing is you'll fly in. And again, this is a trip that you can do. I've put it together for my clients when they couldn't go on the dates that I had. Um, you basically fly into Las Vegas. We could stay in Las Vegas, and we'll talk about Las Vegas in a moment. And then we'll head down to Best Friends Society, volunteer for a couple days, and then head down to the Grand Canyon, which is about 2.5 hours drive from Kanab. And from Las Vegas to Kanab, it's about a 4-hour drive. So it's a full day trip. The other thing you can do instead of going to the Grand Canyon is go to Zion National Park, which is about an hour and a half from Kanab, from the Best Friend Society. And they have a fabulous spa there that I've put, it's called Flanagan's. And in fact, since I was taking groups there every year, they had actually put a vegan breakfast in their restaurant. Now I'm going to backtrack a little bit. At Best Friend Society, I need to triple check this, but they just opened up this year a vegan hotel right near the sanctuary itself. So it's very exciting.
That's great.
And these are some of my pictures. A couple of the dogs, every trip I've taken people on, I think I've taken like 4 or 5 trips. Every trip I've had people on, somebody's adopted a dog or a cat.
That's awesome.
That's
So,
great.
and here
Well,
are some of the animals on this trip
which you said are
that are
pets. They're not, which are not pets. They are part of the family of the
right.
experience.
Right. They
Yeah.
don't typically take in farm animals. So horses are not considered farm animals, but they will take them. They'll take them in.
Now, in terms of, for those of you who are wondering about Canada, I just wanted to jump in there on the national parks. We have 38 national parks here in Canada. We have at least one in every province and territory, and it's about 3.3% of our land mass. So we have lots of national parks to visit as well. One of the fun facts that I like sharing with people is our least visited national park is Tuktoet Nugayat,
You
and
gotta be
it's
careful how
in
you say
Northwest Territories, and it only had 2 visitors one year, so it was the least visited, but it is way north of the Arctic Circle, so it doesn't surprise me that that it's not as visited as much as, say, Banff National Park, which is our most visited.
I'm going to just chime in here that Peter Walker had said there's another boating option, self-drive catering, called Erie Canal Adventures, and I'll put the link up there if anybody's
That's
interested.
great. Yeah, there's a lot of great options, and depending on where you're going in the country, in either of our countries, it's really, that's where we look for the right providers, because there's some that do really great regional options for sure.
So places that definitely have more than 2 visitors a year are the US theme parks. I'm going to talk to you today specifically about the Orlando theme parks, Walt Disney World and Universal. And you can see some pictures coming up. I could do a week of webinars just on the theme parks. So for the purposes today, I'm going to kind of talk about them as a whole, even though Universal and Disney are 2 separate entities. So everyone knows the theme parks. They're places for families, they're places for adults, they're places for thrill seekers, and they're great places for vegans. So that's something I really want to talk to you about today as we get to the other slides. There's just lots to do. And if you have not been to the theme parks within the last 5 years, it's almost like a completely new place. There's so much new stuff. You can see Batu from the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge area at Disney World. That's brand new and gorgeous. And then there are just these timeless moments. Like there's my family. We always have to take a selfie on Dumbo. That's just a classic.
You look like you have a crown on your head.
Oh, yeah, I do, right? A fireworks crown. So you can definitely have the best day ever. And the next bunch of pictures are from Universal as well. So things to know. We're gonna have a slide about this, but some things to know about the parks is that the Orlando theme parks are open. They've been open since June. Most attractions are open. Many restaurants are open. Most of the hotels are open. So you're gonna have great experiences. The Velocicoaster is opening soon. That's gonna be amazing. So a new part of the Jurassic Park area. I'm a big Jurassic Park fan. And of course, you can see the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. So all these classic experiences. And out of the two, Universal is the one that's the most like your normal experience. So there's not as much that's changed, but I'll talk to you a little bit about what has changed in the parks. So what to expect at theme parks in 2021, you're definitely gonna have to wear a mask. That's just everywhere now. Like I said, there's social distancing and it is enforced. So just like, I think we've all been to different places around where there are markers out and you know where to stay. They're also doing things like only sometimes loading one family per car. They're trying to do things to keep everything safe. But what I really want to emphasize to you is that you need to be ready for changes and you need to plan ahead. Theme park vacations are never vacations where you can wing it. What I don't want you to be is that person who's standing in the middle of Main Street with, a map, wondering where Harry Potter is. Harry Potter's, 40 minutes away. So you want to be the one who's planning. And the planning has definitely changed these days. So for example, at Disney World, there's no fast pass right now. The rules for dining reservations have changed. You need park reservations. You can't just show up. So these are things that you really want to plan for. And like Margie said, that's something I'm very familiar with. I love to help people plan ahead. And We were talking about RVing earlier. There are so many ways to stay at the theme parks. You see here a villa. So if you want to self cater and bring in groceries, you absolutely can. There are gorgeous campsites. Walt Disney World has Fort Wilderness Campground. It's absolutely beautiful. You can see there's some beautiful wildlife around you. There are full hookup campsites. There are cabins. That's what you see on the screen right now. It's people go all out decorating for the holidays. It's just a wonderful place. And of course, there are many unique themed resorts. Many of the resorts in both places are pet friendly. So if you want to if you need to bring your furry friends with you, you can bring them to some of the resorts, especially the campground. And I wanted to just show you that Disney is partnered with H2O Plus, and those are all certified cruelty-free toiletries. So I think many people might have the impression because Disney and Universal, they're so corporate, it's so, they're just big companies that they might not be sustainable. They're not green places. They actually both have a great commitment to environmental stewardship and community responsibility. There's a lot more than I could even fit on these slides, but what I wanted to point out about Universal is they have a partnership to recycle their soaps and toiletries and textiles to help vulnerable populations around the world. They both are really committed to recyclables. And if you look at that commitment by 2030 by Walt Disney World, I'm really impressed by that. They have made a commitment by 2030 for zero waste, zero emissions, and zero carbon electricity usage, which is fantastic. And they also have a great conservation program for animals that's saved over 1,000 species. So it's really, they're very responsible. And there's so much great stuff to eat. Look at all these theme park favorites. And yes,
Margie.
it's vegan. So these Mickey pretzels are vegan. Dole Whip is vegan. The famous Voodoo donut from Voodoo Donuts is vegan. So great options for eating that. You can get vegan Mickey waffles as well, but you have to ask for those. So I did talk about many ways you can self cater with the RVs and with the villas and cabins, but you do not have to self cater. Um, Disney is fantastic, especially Universal's coming along too, that there are vegan menus all the time, and you can also talk to the chefs. There's always an allergy chef to tell you what you can eat, and very often I've been asked, what do you feel like eating? So the chef's been ready to make me anything, which is great. And 10 years ago, I wouldn't have said that Orlando is a vegan hub, but it really has become even beyond the parks. It's a huge vegan hub in the US. So now we're going to tell you about all kinds of vegan hubs in Canada and the US.
We've said it a few times here, and we really could do an entire session on each of these topics. So what we wanted to do is try and give some inspiration about the places that you might consider as your hub destination to be able to start your exploration of Canada and the US. In Canada, I've picked 4 of the best spots to be able to showcase to you here. The first one is, of course, Toronto, Ontario. I am a bit biased because this is my hometown. But it is the largest city in Canada. It's not Canada's capital. It's the capital of our province of Ontario. But Toronto is the most populated city in the country and has the largest community of vegans in Canada as well. It is home to a great little spot called Vegandale, which is considered a mecca for ethically minded people. What has happened is 3 great vegan brands have come together and they have taken over a portion of our popular Queen Street out in the West End. And they have purchased each of the businesses, each of the storefronts next to each other to build this Vegandale community of plant-based businesses and like-minded people where you can go and you can shop, you can find goods and services from plant-based and vegan people. Toronto is also really great because of its proximity to things like animal sanctuaries, as well as being able to visit smaller communities in and around the city that have wonderful vegan scenes as well. I have put a note here about Esther the Wonder Pig. Many people know Esther the Wonder Pig, who is part of the Happily Ever Esther sanctuary, just located outside of Toronto. Definitely worth a day trip to be able to visit, but Toronto is definitely a great spot to visit. My favorite vegan restaurant in Toronto is totally a junk food vegan restaurant, but it's called Hogtown Vegan. If any of you are on the call would like a personal tour of the restaurant, I will arrange that for you because I could go there day in and day out. But the list is huge as the number of places in Toronto that you can visit as a vegan and enjoy. The next spot is over on the West Coast, Vancouver. Vancouver is our largest, our third largest city in the country. It is a regular on top 10 vegan lists for must visit vegan food paradises. It has got a huge selection of restaurants that you can pick. There is a chain of restaurants called Meat, MEET, and there's also the Acorn restaurant, which is apparently the #1 vegan-friendly restaurant in the world. I haven't had a chance to visit yet, but everybody that I've spoken to has said it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and it's a must-visit in Vancouver. It's great in Vancouver to be able to leave the city and hit the nature. You have the North Shore Mountains that are kind of the iconic backdrop of Vancouver that you might remember from the World Olympics a few years ago. But you can easily get to those mountains and go exploring and go on an adventure within a half an hour or 45 minutes. So it's really great if you want to have a bit of city, but then be able to go and enjoy nature. Our third vegan hub is Montreal, Quebec. This is actually a surprising fact, but Montreal is actually our second most populated city in the country and has an amazing vegan food scene. You literally can find every type of cuisine in this city. This is one of my, I'll make it my second favorite because Toronto is my favorite. But if I can go to any city and visit, it would be Montreal because there is great art, there's great architecture. Again, you're really close to nature and the city is just vibrant with culture and life. One of the best places that I've visited is a vegan plant-based butcher called Gusta that's actually located just outside of downtown. And they offer some wonderful meats that you can go pick, some vegan meats that you can go pick up and enjoy if you don't want to hit a restaurant. And they've also got apparently the best ramen in the world at Ramen 9000. So if I can go to Montreal, I'm definitely going to go explore some more of these places because they've got some great choices.
And they have the best shopping in the world. I think it's like 7 miles of underground shopping, which is probably not going to be happening anytime soon, but just for future.
And the last point on that point, it's they've got tons of shopping, but they've also got a ton of street fairs. It doesn't matter the time of year. It doesn't matter if it's -40 in the middle of winter. Montreal is known for closing down streets and just having a pop-up fair. I mean, the last time I was there, I think there was a circus fair happening. It was just, you had acrobats that were just all over the parks and doing some amazing feats and stunts. So Montreal is definitely a place that you'd want to consider for a hub.
And
The last,
oh,
sorry.
I was just going to say for people traveling from the US to Canada, the dollar is great right now.
We usually are, the exchange rate's usually a little bit better from US to Canadian dollars for sure. The last and fourth, the fourth hub that I wanted to talk about, because I did not want to leave out the maritime provinces, is Halifax, Nova Scotia. Now, I will say with the caveat that the maritime provinces are kind of bringing up the rear in terms of veganism, and they're just starting to get that influx of a vegan community, because a lot of people who have come from Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver have started moving out into the East Coast to be able to start growing, the vegan community. There's a lot of new vegan businesses that are appearing. You've got a great music scene. If you love music, Halifax is a wonderful spot. When the bars are open again, you can be sure that there'll be a different type of music in each one of them. Halifax is also home to a vegan-friendly brewery, one of my favorites, Alexander Keith's. They have been vegan as long as I have known. They have been a vegan-friendly brewery because they have absolutely no animal product in their process. And you know, if you're going to Halifax, you're definitely going to want to visit places like Peggy's Cove, which has all of those beautiful lighthouses that I'm sure you've seen videos when I've seen videos or photos when you've been looking at the maritime provinces, and you can really hit each of the other provinces in the Maritimes right from this central location. So I'm going to pass off the vegan hubs for the US off to you and Donna, Jennifer.
Yeah, we're gonna make this quick.
Well, we're starting with my hometown, New York City,
Yes.
which everyone knows is the city that never sleeps. I don't even know how many museums we have, so many different places. And I was telling Donna, surprisingly enough, we were talking about all the sanctuaries upstate. There's Farm Sanctuary being the most famous one, I think. But there's actually a wildlife refuge, I mean, right a couple miles from me within New York City limits. A lot of people don't know that. It's a great place for birding and seeing seals. There's a lot that's surprising about the city. And Donna was telling me about we counted. She counted all the vegan restaurants. So why don't you tell us about that?
Well, there's I couldn't even count them all because we didn't have enough time, but it was over 150 fully vegan restaurants in New York City. For some reason, it wasn't in the top 10, if I remember, of the most vegan friendly places, but I find that hard to believe. I will tell you my favorite vegan restaurant, you guys might want to make note, is Beyond Sushi. They have several different locations and it is the best. You can take non-vegans there if you have non-vegan family members. They won't even notice it. Um, yeah, Beyond Sushi is probably my favorite. Hangawe is another one, which is Korean, and it's very old school Korean
Yeah,
food, but it's all
very
vegan. It's
traditional. Yeah.
very traditional and wonderful food. There's so many wonderful restaurants there. I go there just to eat. You know, that's what I do. Um, so that brings us to Asheville, North Carolina, which you guys, if you want to get out of the cities, you know, which a lot of us do, you want to take your RV down there, you want to just drive there. I've been there several times. Asheville, North Carolina. I have several good friends who live there. It's an outdoor adventures paradise. There's a lot of hiking around there. You've got the Appalachian Trail. It has a vegan awareness week, a veg fest, and a vegan fest. Some of, I think my favorite restaurants um, down there are Rosetta's Kitchen and Laughing Seed, but there are so many other vegan restaurants there. Chicago. Are we going to share this one, Jennifer? Um, Chicago this time of year is probably too cold, but in the summer it's great, and in the fall it's great. There's a lot of beautiful architecture, and you've got Lake Michigan. I went there for a wedding last year. It was amazing. I usually go there at least once a year. This will be the first year in about 5 years I haven't been there. A lot of great music and comedy scene. That's where I usually go, is for the comedy scene, because I have some clients that are well-known comics that do a show there. And you've got the urban, as far as the restaurants, you've got Urban Vegan, Alice and Friends, and Deep Dish Pizza. And at I've never heard of this, Lou Malinotti's, but the best one is the Chicago Diner. It's probably the oldest. I think it's the oldest vegan restaurant in Chicago. I think it was 1984 when it opened up. Now we got Las Vegas. Um, it's got an ever expanding scene. When I went there, when I took my group there 10 years ago, there was nothing there. I mean, I had the worst sushi there. You know, you can't go wrong with veggie sushi, but it was bad. But it has changed so much. There's a place called Tarantino's. They've got the best vegan buffalo wings. They've got Vegination. They've got unique vegan eats at Chef Kenny's Asian Cuisine. And the best part, because I'm a sugarholic, is the infamous Ronald's Donuts. You
Now,
have to
why
go
is it
there just for
infamous,
that.
Donna?
What's that?
Why is it infamous?
It's just been around forever, and they have amazing donuts. And I haven't been there yet. I'm gonna confess I haven't. But everyone I've talked to has talked about how you've got to go there. So next
That's
time when I go on this best friends trip, we're all going to go there.
that's yeah, usually the best places are the ones that people say that you've got to go here.
Mhm.
Yes. San Francisco, my
Right.
town, my kind of town. Um, it was ranked number 3 in the top vegan cities in the USA. They've got Wholesome Bakery. There are so many vegan restaurants there. Melissa said she's ready to eat. Too many vegan restaurants to count. Try the Herbivore, Millennium, Next Level Burger, Wild Seed. I will tell you, when Millennium opened up in I think it was the 2000s, maybe late 1990s, they were in downtown San Francisco at that time. They were in a hotel, a Best Western, and I would intentionally stay at that hotel so that I could get their chocolate mousse cake at midnight because that there is bar none anything like it. So it's now, I think, in Oakland. Um, um, oh, somebody said, but shout out to Breads on Oak in New Orleans. But there's also a lot of animal sanctuaries there. You've got Farm Sanctuary out there, as well as Miyoko has a sanctuary out there. And I'm missing one. There is one other place there. Not to mention, you've got the Redwoods. I mean, it's just an incredible outdoorsy kind of place with a city. So next is
Yeah,
poll.
that brings us to our last little poll. We just wondered which of these vegan destinations excite you the most and would you want to visit? So I believe this is a multiple choice as well. We're just going to throw it up really quickly. If you want to take a quick vote, everybody, it should pop up on your screen.
And one thing back to those vegan hubs, I know of the ones we talked about in the US, many of them are really easy to get around. Like New York is a very walkable city. A lot of them have public transportation. So they're great places to go if you don't want to have a huge carbon footprint. You can get there and you don't need to have a car. You can really get around on foot, and public transportation are some of the best ways to really get to know a new
Totally.
city.
Or grab a bike and,
Yeah, oh, for sure.
bicycle through some of the cities. I know in Toronto, we've got a great infrastructure for bicycling. We've got bike sharing programs that you can use. So there's a lot of different options.
Yeah, we have that in New York too. We have city bikes, and I mean, over the last less than 5 years, we've built so many bike lanes. I'm not going to ride a bike in Manhattan myself, but some of you might want to. But there are bike lanes everywhere. I mean, I know people who will bike from Manhattan out to Rockaway Beach, which is awesome.
So it looks like the national parks and the Canadian hubs. Let me share the results here.
That's great. So everybody wants to go to Canada and the US. We've
Yeah.
done a good job. We've excited people for the trip.
I will tell you, there's so many walking tours in every city now. DC had one last year, and I'm hoping that they're going to open up again because they did a fabulous job. So walking tours, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, LA, and you get some really amazing people that know what they're talking about.
That's great. So we wanted to end just on the value of a travel agent, because we all think that it is really going to be important moving into 2021 that you have somebody that's on your side and able to give you advice, able to give you up-to-date information, and able to be there for you. So some of the value that we know we provide is we've got that expert advice. We know the best spots, can make these recommendations for you. We offer peace of mind. We'll do a lot of the review of the fine print. We'll tell you everything that you should be able to expect from all the different options that you've chosen for your best trip. We also have the best value. In a lot of cases, I know Jennifer and Donna will agree, we talk to a lot of different tour operators and are able to piece together packages and get pricing that you can't find in a lot of places, or little value adds like on the RVing, being able to add your dishes into your component without having that be an extra fee. Little things like that can add up on a trip. So that's where you have a travel agent that can help you.
And in this day and age, with everything that was going on, you really need us.
Totally.
I was able to get people home from Dominican Republic when no one else could get them out, other people out. Same thing with Europe, and getting refunds, because that's really important. That was a very difficult thing to do, but us travel agents were working night and day to make sure that our clients were taken care of and they didn't have to worry about it.
And that's where our big point on this slide comes in, that we're really your personal travel advocate. where we start the conversation. We know the whys and what you want to do. And if you were to ever run into any challenges on your trip, you make one phone call to us and we're able to handle sorting out all of those issues. So if you piece together the trip yourself, it's often taking away that valuable travel time that you have. Whereas my clients, if there's an issue, they call me, I'm able to sort it out. I call them back when it's all sorted. So moving into 2021, you're definitely not going to want to do this on your own. So having someone like Donna, Jennifer, or myself work with you to craft your trip, we know all the little ins and outs and are able to make sure that you come home having an amazing experience.
So we
And
did
So,
just
it. I'm sorry, go
sorry,
ahead.
Jennifer.
Yeah, and just a little known point, for many of these trips, you if you were to try to go online and book it yourself, you would pay the exact same amount or more, um, and not get any of this help. So you're paying for a service and not getting it. So you're getting this exceptional value of kind of having this personal advocate by your side and an expert by your side, and you're not, in a lot of cases, and that's something to discuss with your agent. But in many cases, you're not paying extra for it, or you're not paying a lot extra for it for such an invaluable service. I mean, I don't know. I know all of us, I just, for a laugh between the three of us, if we charge by the hour, how much would we have to charge for all these, these COVID reschedules or just any little thing that comes up.
Yeah.
So I would say
Right.
just like travel insurance, we're here for you when things come up that you don't expect.
And yeah, if you're paying as much as you're paying for your vacation, it's worthwhile to have somebody on your side to make sure that it doesn't go sideways, and that if it does, there's ways that you're able to be able to make it an experience, turn it back into the experience that you were hoping for. On your point, Jennifer, there are, for some of the complicated itineraries, some agents that charge a planning fee, and that, don't be surprised at that, but it's really come out of the fact that, as you say, we put a ton of hours into the research of your trip. So
Right.
making sure that we're crafting that for you. There are some agents that charge a small service fee depending on what you're looking for. Ask your agent up front what those fees may be. You might find out that it's $0, that everything is covered in a commission, and that everything doesn't cost you anything extra. So it's always worth the ask, and the proper place to start with your travel agent so you're clear right up front.
Right.
Great. So I think that brings us to questions. If
I'm looking.
anybody has any questions they can write them into the chat box in Zoom
Yeah.
or into the comments under our Facebook Live now.
Yeah.
We did go a few minutes over, so we apologize on that. But as we said, there was a lot of information to go through. If you are interested in us doing a more in-depth session on one of these topics, write it down in the chat box, because we are going to be reviewing those and setting up some future chats in the coming months.
So we have a couple of questions or comments.
Yeah.
Amanda said she would love that ebook.
Great. Perfect. So Amanda, we'll make sure to get that out to you.
Yeah.
We're going to be adding some links onto our online event page for Eventbrite. An email will be sent out to everybody as soon as we have those links on there. Something I wanted to chat about, if anybody is Canadian on the line, my agency actually runs a free trip giveaway every single year. This year's free trip is a cruise for two on Celebrity Cruises, including your airfare. It is only sadly open to Canadian residents. So if you are Canadian, that resource will be available on our event page as well. And I wanted to let the Canadian travelers know as well that we have a finance program that we've started called Zero Interest Program, where our clients can travel now and pay later with equal payments or deferred payments. If you'd like any additional details, it's a zero interest option and a great way to be able to upgrade your experience if you wanted to try something that you normally can't afford.
So we have a comment from Wanda, and we have a couple of other questions I want to go over real quickly. Wanda's really interested in traveling where she can eat exclusively plant foods that are prepared without added sugars, oil, or salt. That's a little bit more difficult to do, but it can be done. A lot of the spas, especially out in the west, like the West Coast, or in some of the places that I was talking about, like Zion, the spas out there, they'll be able to handle that for you, but it takes a lot of preparation, a lot of pre-planning on that.
I
So,
will say that in the hubs in Canada, a lot of those vegan restaurants that we've talked about in a lot of those hubs, those restaurants can easily accommodate. Usually just requires a quick call in advance or letting them know when you want to go. Something again, I'm sure Donna, Jennifer, and I have no problem doing is picking up that phone, making sure your reservation is ready, making sure they know that you don't want any sugars, added salts. Another one that we've had a lot of requests for is no oil. So
right.
he slowly these hotels and these restaurants are starting to recognize that there's a lot of different types of people with a lot of different dietary requirements. I never use the term restriction. I use
Lifestyle.
requirements. Yeah.
It's a
So
lifestyle.
it's so important. And it's definitely something your travel agent can make sure to find for you.
So
Yep. And
now,
believe it or not, I've had theme park clients with a similar diet, like a no oil, no sugar diet, and they've been accommodated. But it's
That's really surprising to me. I'm so happy to hear that now.
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. It's
So
really they've come a long way.
Paul had a question. He said, "Good to see them about making efforts." This is for you, Jennifer. About them making efforts to reduce impact. Have they removed the single-use plastic bottles?
I wish. They've eliminated plastic straws, and both resorts I think said that they've eliminated 80% of the plastic in their guest rooms. With COVID, it's a little bit hard because I know a lot of places are going toward more single-use things for safety right now. They still do sell those single-use plastic bottles, but they're like the Dasani bottles. But those are, there's recycling everywhere. They do recycle, so that's a great thing. Universal has a reusable mug program that can be used in the parks. Disney's doesn't work in the parks just now, so the reusable mug hopefully will cut down on a lot of that waste. But I'm seeing these advances. I'm hoping, I'm hoping they can, go even further in the future. And yeah, people are saying Disney's great for diet requirements, and the chefs are great. There's a chef called Chef TJ. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's the best. I mean, he will make you feel like the restaurant was made for you, not like, oh, you're the yeah. So Linda knows Chef TJ. Yeah, so it's not like, oh, you're the different one who gets this limited menu. Like Chef TJ will make you feel like you're the queen of the world, and you look, and everyone else will drool over your dinner.
That's
So
always my favorite when it comes out and everybody's like, what is that?
mhm.
And
Oh,
doesn't always happen.
we have a question for you, Jason.
Okay.
This is from Marlo. His question is for Jason. Are there farm sanctuary opportunities to volunteer in Vancouver?
In Vancouver, there are some volunteer opportunities. I'd have to pull those up. What I can do is I'll send you a message with some options after this. But each of the hubs that we talked about tonight definitely do have sanctuaries that are there. The volunteer part, again, especially after the pandemic, has really the volunteer options are limited. But I'm hoping once some of the restrictions start being removed, we're going to see those volunteer opportunities pop up a little bit more. There are some in Alberta for sure. There's an organization that we have a blog post about. I'll add it in the link in our resources that does some wonderful, wonderful work. We're seeing a ton of great sanctuaries pop up all across Canada. I'm sure it's the same in the United States, but
Oh,
I
it
think a lot of
is.
people are
Yeah.
starting to realize that it's a great way to live and it's a great way to give back.
Yes, in Washington, D.C., we have a very well-known one called Poplar Spring.
Mhm.
Up in upstate New York, you've got Farm Sanctuary, but you also have this place that we stayed at that's a mini farm sanctuary that not many people know about, and it's called the Junebug Lodge. It's in Watkins Glen, and you get to stay in a tiny home, and you can bring your dog. And they have their animals are birds, so they just basically have chickens and I think it's just chickens and ducks. And they actually have a group of roosters that live together, which is really interesting. I got attacked by one, and he was just protecting everybody. So I don't think we have any other questions. We do have some people that were talking about some of the restaurants they like in San Francisco. And Linda said that she's celiac too, which can be a little more difficult, because we don't know what's being,
I
I mean,
think,
there are
yes,
some.
celiac, you can definitely, it's again like the no oil, the no sugar. It's a dietary requirement. We're seeing a lot in Canada. There's another agent I know that focuses in Canada on celiac trips. We've connected quite a bit, and they're having the same sort of growth as veganism now. I think dietary requirements are really popping up. So it's not impossible in Canada to be able to eat celiac. It's a little more challenging because celiac isn't gluten intolerant. It's you actually are doing harm by eating gluten. So
Right.
there's a lot more restrictions to
Yeah, it's a
making
lot
sure
more
that it's
serious.
actually celiac,
Yeah.
but definitely possible with a little bit of pre-planning.
I think
And
more so in those same vegan hubs are going to be great places for gluten-free eating. And then certainly, just to speak for the theme parks, the allergy chefs will bring your food out separately and it will be flagged as, as gluten-free. And it
Yeah.
won't, so
So
you'll know it comes from an allergy kitchen. So
now, I
that's
just wanted to jump back to Marlo's question about the farm sanctuary. I knew there was one that was sitting on the top of my tongue. The Happy Herd Farm Sanctuary in Aldergrove, BC. It's just outside of Vancouver. They did do volunteering and a wonderful option on the West Coast.
So, we had a couple of more comments. Paul was saying COVID has really set back the reduction in single-use plastics. Yes, that's true. And many hotels have reversed their plans to remove. That I haven't heard, Paul, but you might know a little bit better than me because you actually work in the hospitality. But I've been trying to keep an eye out, and that's a good question to ask some of these hotels.
Well, and yeah, I would agree with Paul that we've seen a few steps back because there was a lot of here you can have your cutlery all in one little package so that you don't have to worry about cross contamination.
Right.
It was a bit disheartening for me to see that we were taking those steps back, but from the hotels that I've talked to, it's not their intention to stay in that mode. They want to get back to it. It's just how do they do it
Health.
in this
Yeah.
sort of climate and culture. So on Montreal, I didn't get a chance to mention it. There is actually a zero waste cafe that it's called Cafe Tuyo, and it actually you cannot get any single-use plastic. It's a vegan cafe, and you get your drinks in a mason jar that they charge you $1.50 sort of a deposit on that you bring back, and they'll refill it every time, and you only pay the deposit once, but you kind of get your mason jar, and it is exploding in terms of popularity.
Well,
Yeah,
I
I think
think,
the demand for sustainability will hopefully ensure that all of these programs
yes,
will come back.
Fingers crossed.
yes, fingers crossed.
Yeah,
So if we don't have any other questions, we're almost 7 minutes after, and people are starting to leave us. But
that's all right. Thank you for
Thank you.
yeah,
coming.
thank you for coming. We'll be back on Tuesday because we're going to be talking about cruises and all inclusives, and then after that, we're going to be talking about Central and South America, and then we've got Paul's going to actually be on the one. I think the following week. I could have the dates wrong. For Asia, and that'll be with Zach and Paul. Zach from Veg Voyages and Paul from Vegan Food Quest, and Bridie
We've got
from
lots and
World Vegan
lots
Travel.
more
So there's a lot,
information for
but
sure.
most important to everyone, you need to come to the last show because we're doing games and we're going to be doing giveaways. So we're figuring all that out right now, but I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. This was a
Thank
lot of
you.
fun.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody. Look forward to connecting in the Facebook group.
Bye.